Hello, I'm back. I want to make a follow-up video to last night's video because my phone died at the end of it and I have a little more to say. So I will resume where I left off. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at my previous video, which is called Contrabass Guitar Contra Basics. I have my contrabass guitar. I will be playing it up high. Here is my 12th fret, so that's E, A, D, G. I'm going to move down here to fret 10 on G, and I'm going to play in G, the key of G. So I'm talking about blues progressions that are based on 1-4-5. 1, 4, 5, 1. Here that's G, C, D, G. And each chord is a dominant chord. It has a major third and a minor seventh. They could also have a perfect fifth, but I'm choosing to omit them. And what I mean by dominant is not in the classical theory sense of a chord progression that starts in the tonic and then moves up to the subdominant or to the predominant and then moves up again to the dominant, the point of maximum tension and climax, and then resolves back to the tonic. That's not what I mean. I just mean the type of chord is a dominant seventh chord. It has a major third and a minor seventh. Could have a perfect fifth, but I'm not doing that. So in that case, the 1, the 4, and the 5 are all dominant chords. It's just language. It's stupid, but it helps a little bit. So when you play the third above the bass note of the 1 chord, so you have a G and then a B above it. When you go in the bass from 1 to 4, you take that third, you slide it down, and it becomes the 7th above the 4 chord, the chordal 7th, B to B flat. And then when you take the 7th above the 1 chord, here's G, here's F, slide it down to E, it becomes the 3rd above the 4 chords bass note C. C, E. So what was the 3rd is now the 7th, and what was the 7th is now the 3rd. What's true of 4 is true of 5, just up a step, or up 2 frets, whole step. So it has a 7th and a 3rd, and then those slide back down. So if I get rid of the bass notes, that's all I'm doing. There it is. But I need to talk about what this is. This is a tritone, but what that means literally is tritone, 3 tones. Tone meaning a whole tone. So here's B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, not F. It's not B and F sharp. I'm sorry, it's not B and F, it's B and E sharp, because you use letter names for your scale degrees when you go up or down a scale. So if B is 1, you go B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp. But in another harmonic context, if you were to go, let's see, if you were to do this B and call that 8 instead of 1 and go down 8, 7, 6, 5, but then in the context of B, it is a diminished fifth. It's not a perfect fifth. You diminish it, you make it smaller. Just as you, if it's a fourth, you take a fourth, a perfect fourth, and you make it bigger, you augment it. So it's either an augmented fourth with an E sharp on top, or a diminished fifth with an F on top. And whichever one it is depends on the context of the music. The reason they share a fret and they sound the same is because this instrument and all fretted instruments and all keyboard instruments today, in today's era, they are set up in a tuning system called 12-tone equal temperament. Well, what it means is if you tune so that the key, let's say the key of C, is perfectly in tune, if you play in other keys, it's going to be out of tune. The reference point would be C, and the further you drift from that reference point, like maybe if you try to play an F sharp, the maximally distant, harmonically distant key, it's going to sound the worst. Keys close to C will sound close to pure. Keys far away from C will sound far away from pure. It is a mathematical impossibility to use a set of 12 fixed pitches to play in all keys in tune. So you detune them a little, and you play all keys a little bit out of tune, but not so much that we notice, because we're so used to it after all this time that we accept it as normal. But if you start playing pure intervals again, you start realizing how out of tune things actually are now. This is the modern paradigm. It's not new. People knew about it in the 16th century, but it does require some weird mathematics to calculate irrational numbers. I'm not going to get into it. This instrument makes it so E sharp and F are the same, but they're not really. If you use just intonation, if you use in tune pitches. What do I mean by in tune? Is it just a societal construct? It's true that different societies tune differently, and different musical traditions in the world use different scales. But I'm not being a cultural suprematist. I am speaking about physics. The only thing physics or nature has to say about music is the harmonic series, which is audible on any string instrument, or you can play it on a bugle or any kind of cup mouthpiece brass instrument if you don't bring the valves into it, if you just play with embouchure. So on a string, I can play the whole length of the string and it will vibrate like a football shape or like a pair of parentheses. That's the full string. That's the let's call that the number 1. And then if I put my finger on the center point of the string, which happens to be at the 12th fret, but let's think more simply. The center of the string, if I divide it in half with my finger and then pluck one half of it, it produces an octave above. What it is double the frequency. The ratio is 2 to 1. The ratio between the new note and the old note. So if we are going to create a scale based on the harmonic series, what we do is we keep dividing it into the length of the string into smaller chunks. We divide it in half, then we divide it in thirds, and then we divide it in fourths, and so on, ad infinitum. The intervals get smaller and smaller, the ratios get closer and closer together. The sound gets quieter and quieter, the pitch gets higher and higher, but it's like a Zeno's paradox. So we pick the first few of them that we can actually hear, and then we create a scale from it. And the closest thing to a universal musical language in the world is the recognition of the first few intervals in this infinite harmonic series. Then as you keep going up the series, different cultures deviate in different ways from it. So it's people say music is the universal language. Not quite, but the harmonic series is. And all of our human musical systems ultimately derive from it, with a few exceptions. So that's my cultural tirade. Like it or not, this is the modern system in the West and increasingly across the globe. Thankful, or not thankful, but due to globalization, due to westernization. It is what it is. There are other systems, and I've made a video describing one from the European Renaissance. The video is called How to Play Quarter Comma Mean Tone on the Lute, or something like that. I'm holding a lute in the thumbnail. And a very excellent video I can recommend on the subject of temperament versus just intonation is from a group with a YouTube channel called Early Music Sources, and they have a video called Just Intonation in the Renaissance. Highly recommended. I'll put the link in the comments. So, back to here. G, G7. What I can do is take advantage of the enharmonic equivalence of the fact that these notes share frets on this instrument. I can use that to make new harmonic moves. I'll show you. So I've got this tritone moving around here. Doesn't matter if you think of them as augmented fourths or diminished fifths, but I can also do tritones in the bass. I can move the bass by tritone. So here's a G, here's a tritone away at C sharp. What happens is if I play a C sharp dominant chord with 7th and 3rd, I use the same harmonies as the G chord, a tritone away. And again, what was the 3rd is now the 7th. What was the 7th is now the 3rd. And that's why I don't put the 5ths in. Because if I play a 5th above G, then if I move the bass by tritone, it's going to clash against that new bass note. So here's how to use tritone substitutions. I can substitute, instead of a G7 chord, I can substitute a C sharp 7 chord. Or you can go on a D flat 7 chord, it doesn't matter. Depends on the musical context. They sound the same. Why? To get to 4 smoothly. Here's G, 1. Here's C, 4. You can go D flat down to C. You can play 1, its tritone sub, to lead into C chromatically. And then you can play the C's tritone sub, F sharp, to lead chromatically, back to 1. And then you get to 5, tritone sub of G is C sharp, up to D, there's 5, right? And then A flat, down to G, that's 5, here's the tritone sub of 5, back to 1. So by moving the bass note, a tritone away in either direction, you can allow yourself to have twice as many moves in your bass line while keeping the upper harmonies the same. That's why when I play rhythm guitar in a blues context, a lot of times I'll just play tritones. I don't play roots in my chords because that would tie down the bassist if there's a separate bassist. If I'm playing roots, they can't play tritone away, it'll clash. So I leave it open, and that's why I don't play fifths, because I also leave it open. In bass, which I was shown yesterday, you can do more than just play a bass line. You can also add upper structures, and that's how. And, you know, if you have a sense of harmony as a bass player, you're not just playing melodic lines, you are playing them within a harmonic context. So you can play, even if you're just playing a simple bass line, you can use tritone subs in that to refer to harmonies that other people are doing. So it behooves every bass player to have a thorough understanding of harmony so that you can move intelligently on your instrument in relation to what other people are hopefully doing. That's part one. Part two of what I wanted to share tonight is another set of substitutions you can use in blues, or more accurately, it is how to relate that system, which I'll call major blues because it has a major third, that 1-4-5 with the dominant chords, how to relate that to a minor blues 1-4-5 progression in a key a fourth away, in a key a fourth down or a fifth up. Here's G. Here's G7. Here's what I mean. G goes down to D, or up to D, doesn't matter. Keep the two notes above it the same. it's no longer a dominant chord. What it is it has a minor third and a major sixth. It's a sixth chord. But I'm still going to call it a 1, just because it's easy. 1, 4, 5, 1. That's my new key. D, G, A, D. I'm calling it D minor just because it has a minor third. My phone bridge is buzzing a little bit, but that's okay because it makes it more audible. When I go to 4, I do the same thing. I shift it down, the upper notes. And the 4 chord has the same intervals in it. It has a minor third and a major sixth. And by the way, when people play mostly rhythm guitar, or lead guitarists who try to play rhythm guitar, and they try to play minor blues, they'll play these big fat chords like a minor 7 chord, the 5th in it, which I already griped about, and the minor 7th in it, which is not the note that needs to be sustained over any of these chords. Well, over the 1 and the 4 chord. I'll get to the 5 chord later. This is a dissonance against the bass. This is a consonance against the bass, this major sixth. The dissonance resolves to the consonance. And then if you hang out for a while longer, this consonance, this imperfect consonance, can resolve to this more perfect consonance. And you can play a real just minor chord with a 5th and a 3rd. But while you're moving around and switching chords in this active blues situation, you need to use a 6th in your chord to make it mobile. I'll show you why. It's maximally smooth going from this 1 chord with the 6 in it to this 4 chord with the 6 in it, because you only have to shift a semitone. And then for the 5 chord, here is where you have to deviate from the pattern a little bit. If you play the same kind of chord on the 5 chord with a minor 6th, with a minor 3rd and a major 6th, it's not going to serve as a chord that leads back to the tonic. You have to change it. You have to make the minor 3rd a major 3rd, and you have to make the major 6th into an augmented 6th or a minor 7th. I'll talk about that later. But you have to bump the tritone up another semitone. So your 1, 4, 5 in minor sounds like this. So let me explain what's going on here. Most of us were taught when we got started with music that there is 1 major scale and there are 3 minor scales. And most of us were confused as to why that could be the case, but we accepted it. And we learned about the natural minor scale, and then the harmonic minor scale, and then the melodic minor scale. And this was set in stone as the way things are. But this is not how these things derived historically. This is historical revisionism, and it's BS. In the Western tradition, that's a stupid phrase, but bear with me. In mainstream Western music, there is 1 minor scale, and you just alter it as you need. So the natural minor scale is the basic scale, and then you just shift it around as you need within the context. I'm going to move here in familiar country, and I'm going to play A minor. Here's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. It's easy as 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. The first 5 stay put. The sixth, naturally, is a minor sixth, and then a minor seventh, and then up to the octave. That is what we call natural minor. I just call it minor. But when we are moving up, we alter it generally. Keep the first five the same. Sharp 6, sharp 7, 8, which is the same as 1. And then when we go back down, it springs back with a 8, natural 7, natural 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the harmonic, that was the natural minor, that was the melodic minor, as people call it today. The 6th and 7th degree shift up, going up, and they bounce back, going down. The harmonic minor is an alteration of the 7th degree, like this. First five are the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 is the same, it's natural. Sharp 7, 8. That forms an augmented second interval between scale degrees 7 and 6. And the metalheads love that one. But all it is it's a leading tone going up to the tonic note. It's used, I personally don't think it should be used often, but it's maybe used in inner parts that are just accompaniments and aren't standalone melodies that don't have much of a melodic dimension but are outlining a harmony. The main thing is just it's sharpening the 7 to lead it back to 1. So I'm saying that these harmonic and melodic scales are not separate entities. It's just one scale that you're altering. And this means of alteration goes back to the Middle Ages, and it was called musica ficta, or fictional music or false music, as opposed to musica recta, which was real music or authentic music. And this was not a value judgment. It just means musica recta are notes that stay within the scale, and musica ficta are notes that are outside of it. So it's just playing outside of the scale. The early application of sharps and flats, those were considered musica ficta, to speak generally, very generally. And we still use them, we just don't call it that, because these alterations have been so commonplace for so long that we take them for granted as just part of the scale. Like in a minor key, we play 1, 4, 5. We take it for granted that we make that 5 a major chord, or we give it a major third, even though it doesn't naturally have one. Like here's A minor again, a 1 chord, a 4 chord D minor. But what about the E? There are no sharps and flats in A minor, so the E chord in that is E, G, B. That's a minor chord. E, G, B. That's a minor third, so we have to alter it just to make it resolve upward like a leading tone. So we take it for granted that the 5 chord in minor is a major chord, or a dominant 7th chord with a major third in it. All that is the application of musica ficta. And to come back here, that's what we're doing. D minor, 1 chord, 4 chord, minor 5 chord that naturally occurs. This buzzing bridge is bothering me, sorry. But we take the 3rd and we make it major. And we take the 6th and we augment it, we make it augmented. So it makes a dominant 7th chord, and that is the dominant chord of the 1, 4, 5 sequence in the classical sense of dominant, meaning dominant back to tonic. Now, we get into enharmonic equivalence when we think about, is this note an augmented sixth, or is it a minor seventh? They sound the same. They're two semitones away from the octave. But let's think about it in a melodic dimension. If we play D here, sorry, here's D, here's A. This is the minor scale, or part of it. A resolves down to G, right? When the 5 chord is played, and then G goes down to F in the 1 chord and resolves there. So in that sense, you use the different letter names, and you go A, G, F. So if you're playing a G here in an A chord, G is the 7th, A, B, C, D, F, G. So that is a 7th chord and not an augmented 6th chord, even though you are using musica ficta to augment a major 6th to an augmented 6th. So is it an augmented 6th chord, or is it a dominant 7th chord? I don't know. They line up in equal temperament. Make of that what you will. Have a good night.